For centuries, the ocean was seen as an impossible frontier, a vast, unpredictable, and often hostile territory where the forces of nature seemed greater than anything humanity could control. While cities expanded across continents and civilizations reshaped the world, enormous riches remained hidden beneath miles of water, rock, and darkness. Few people imagined that deep below the surface of the sea lay reserves capable of transforming entire economies. Resources so valuable that they would influence global markets, reshape national strategies, and drive some of the greatest technological achievements in modern history. But discovering those resources was never simple. Everything began with a question. What if something was hidden down there? Long before the arrival of massive offshore platforms, drilling vessels, and advanced subsea systems, there were only theories. Geologists studied rock formations, analyzed seismic surveys, and searched for clues hidden beneath the ocean floor. Every piece of information became part of an enormous puzzle. The challenge was extraordinary. Potential reservoirs were buried beneath thousands of meters of water, and layers of rock formed over millions of years. No human eye could see them directly. Scientists and engineers had to rely on knowledge, experience, and an extraordinary ability to interpret what remained invisible. In many cases, years were devoted to studying a single exploration area. Teams reviewed data, tested assumptions, and compared countless possibilities. Companies invested vast amounts of money without any guarantee of success. Billions could be spent before a single well was drilled. Yet the search continued, because the potential reward was simply too great to ignore. When a region showed promising signs, a new phase of the journey began. Specialized vessels were mobilized. Advanced equipment crossed oceans. Entire teams prepared for operations that demanded absolute precision. Every detail had to work flawlessly. Out at sea, there are no easy solutions. Any mistake can cost time, money, and safety. The logistics involved are remarkable. Components manufactured in different countries must arrive at exactly the right place and exactly the right time. Specialists travel thousands of miles to participate in operations that may last weeks or even months. Entire support systems are created to operate in locations where no natural infrastructure exists. Then comes the moment of drilling. Gigantic structures begin advancing slowly toward the unknown. Meter by meter, layer by layer, every step forward represents a small victory against uncertainty. Far below, hidden in complete darkness, there may be reservoirs capable of changing everything, or there may be nothing at all. That is the reality of offshore exploration. Even with modern technology, success is never guaranteed, and that is precisely what makes every discovery so significant. When a positive result finally arrives, the impact can be enormous. A previously unknown area can suddenly become one of the most valuable assets on Earth. Governments revise economic forecasts, companies adjust global strategies, investors turn their attention to places that until recently were little more than distant points on a map. But discovery is only the beginning. Finding oil or natural gas in deep water does not mean production is guaranteed. In many ways, it means an even greater challenge is about to begin. Now an entire infrastructure must be built to operate for decades in one of the harshest environments on the planet. The ocean offers no shortcuts. It demands respect. Storms can form without warning. Massive waves can strike steel structures. Powerful winds continuously test every component. Saltwater corrosion works relentlessly, day after day, year after year. That is why every system must be designed for extreme conditions. Nothing can depend on luck. Everything must perform. This is where thousands of professionals around the world enter the story. Engineers create complex designs. Welders build enormous structures. Technicians conduct rigorous testing. Safety specialists evaluate risks in meticulous detail. Logistics teams coordinate movements involving vessels, helicopters, and massive cargo operations. Many of these people will never set foot on an operating platform, yet their work will be essential to its existence. Inside enormous coastal shipyards, steel structures begin to take shape. What once existed only as drawings and digital models gradually becomes reality. Modules are assembled, pipelines are installed, electrical systems are connected, processing equipment is positioned with extraordinary precision. Piece by piece, something remarkable emerges. A floating industrial city. Some of these installations rival skyscrapers in scale. Others process enormous volumes of production every single day. All of them represent years of planning, engineering, and execution. As construction nears completion, another challenge begins, transporting these structures to their final destination. From a distance, the task may appear straightforward, but moving millions of tons across open water requires extraordinary coordination. Specialized tugboats take carefully calculated positions. Meteorologists monitor changing weather conditions. Engineers oversee every stage of the operation. Even small deviations can create major consequences. That is why every movement is planned in advance. As the structure slowly advances across the sea, hundreds of professionals work together to ensure everything proceeds exactly as intended. The objective is simple: deliver one of the most complex engineering achievements ever created to a precise location in the ocean. But achieving that objective requires decades of accumulated knowledge, experience, discipline, precision, and above all, trust between people who depend on one another to accomplish extraordinary things. When the structure finally reaches its destination, the mission is still far from complete. In many ways, a new chapter is only beginning, because the greatest secrets of the offshore world remain hidden far below the surface, and reaching them will require going deeper than ever before. Once the platform reaches its destination, the real test begins. From above, the structure appears immense. Steel towers rise high above the waterline, surrounded by support vessels, cranes, and a constant flow of activity. Yet most of the operation depends on something that cannot be seen. Far below the surface, in the cold darkness of the deep ocean, an entirely different world exists. It is a world without sunlight, a world of crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures, a world where human beings cannot survive without technology acting as their eyes, hands, and tools. To connect an offshore platform to a reservoir hidden beneath the seabed, engineers must create one of the most complex industrial systems ever developed. The challenge is extraordinary. The reservoir may lie thousands of meters below the ocean floor. Between the platform and that target exists an environment capable of destroying ordinary equipment in a matter of moments. Everything must be designed to withstand conditions that few people will ever experience. Every valve, every connector, every pipeline, every component. Failure is simply not an option. This is where subsea technology enters the story. Gigantic networks of equipment are installed on the seafloor. Production systems, control units, manifolds, and pipelines are carefully positioned with remarkable precision. In many cases, these operations occur at depths where no diver can safely work. Instead, highly specialized robotic vehicles take over. Known as remotely operated vehicles, these machines descend into the darkness carrying cameras, sensors, and advanced tools. Their powerful lights reveal landscapes that seem almost alien. Steel structures emerge from the darkness. Pipelines stretch across the seabed. Control systems wait silently for activation. Every movement is monitored from the surface. Operators guide the robots with incredible accuracy, often from control rooms located hundreds or even thousands of meters above. A task that appears simple on land can become extraordinarily difficult underwater. A single connection may require hours of careful positioning. Visibility can be limited. Ocean currents can interfere with operations. Pressure affects every piece of equipment. Yet day after day, these challenges are overcome. The offshore industry has learned that patience is often just as important as technology. As subsea systems begin to come together, another challenge emerges: connecting the seabed to the platform above. This connection is achieved through massive structures known as risers. These critical lifelines transport oil, natural gas, and vital operational fluids between the reservoir and the surface. They must remain flexible enough to move with waves and currents while remaining strong enough to operate continuously for decades. Designing them requires extraordinary engineering expertise. Every detail matters. The ocean is constantly in motion. Platforms move, currents shift, weather conditions change. The entire system must adapt without losing reliability. When all components are finally connected, the operation enters a new phase: testing. Every system must prove it can perform exactly as expected. Engineers analyze pressure levels. Control systems are verified. Safety barriers are inspected. Communication networks are tested repeatedly. Nothing is left to chance. The objective is clear. When production begins, every element must operate as a single coordinated system. Months of preparation often lead to a single decisive moment: the first flow, the moment when resources hidden beneath the earth for millions of years finally begin their journey to the surface. For the teams involved, it represents far more than a technical milestone. It is the result of years of planning, investment, and determination. But even as production starts, life offshore continues at an intense pace. Because operating a platform is very different from building one. The work never stops. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, operations continue through daylight and darkness. While most of the world sleeps, offshore crews remain at work. Control rooms stay active. Maintenance teams perform inspections. Engineers monitor production systems. Safety personnel verify procedures. The platform functions like a living organism that never truly rests. For the people working there, daily life follows a rhythm unlike anything on shore. Many arrive by helicopter after traveling hundreds of kilometers across open water. As the aircraft approaches, the platform appears on the horizon like a distant city rising from the sea. For newcomers, the first impression is unforgettable. Steel structures extend in every direction. Machinery operates continuously. The ocean surrounds everything. There are no streets, no traffic, no crowds, only the platform and the endless sea. Life quickly adapts to a unique routine. Work shifts are carefully organized. Safety briefings begin each day. Maintenance schedules must be followed precisely. Every task is documented. Every procedure has a purpose. Discipline is not optional. It is essential. Yet beyond the industrial environment, there is also a human story. People from different backgrounds and cultures learn to live and work together. Weeks may pass before they return home. During that time, the platform becomes more than a workplace. It becomes a temporary community. Meals are shared. Friendships are formed. Experiences are exchanged. Veterans pass knowledge to younger workers. New team members learn what cannot be taught in manuals, because some lessons can only be learned through experience. And nowhere is experience more valuable than in the offshore world. Out here, nature constantly reminds everyone who is truly in control. The sea may appear calm one moment and dramatically different the next. Weather forecasts are studied carefully. Conditions are monitored continuously. Every crew understands that the ocean deserves respect, because sooner or later, every offshore operation faces a challenge that no amount of planning can completely eliminate: the arrival of severe weather. And when that moment comes, every decision matters. At first, the signs can be subtle: a change in the wind, dark clouds gathering on the horizon, a slight increase in wave height. To most people, these changes might seem insignificant. But offshore crews learn to recognize them immediately, because far from shore, weather can evolve rapidly. And when it does, the ocean reveals a very different personality. The calm blue surface that seemed almost peaceful can transform into a landscape of immense power. Waves rise higher, winds grow stronger, visibility decreases. The horizon disappears behind layers of rain and cloud. For generations, sailors have respected these moments. The offshore industry does the same. Long before a storm reaches a platform, preparations begin. Operations are reviewed, equipment is secured, personnel receive updated instructions, emergency procedures are verified, communication systems are checked repeatedly. Every action follows established protocols, developed through decades of experience. There is no room for improvisation. Preparation is everything. Inside the control rooms, activity intensifies. Engineers monitor weather data in real time. Supervisors evaluate operational conditions. Teams coordinate responses across multiple departments. Every piece of information matters. The objective is not simply to continue working. The objective is to continue working safely. As conditions worsen, the importance of training becomes increasingly clear. Every offshore professional spends countless hours preparing for situations they may never face. Emergency drills, evacuation exercises, equipment failures, fire response procedures, medical scenarios, weather emergencies. Again and again, teams rehearse these situations, not because they expect problems, but because preparation creates confidence. When a real challenge appears, people do not have time to learn. They must already know what to do. This philosophy has become one of the foundations of the offshore industry, and it has saved countless lives. As the storm approaches, the platform continues operating, but every action becomes more deliberate. Crews move carefully through exposed areas. Supervisors closely monitor conditions. Critical systems receive additional attention. The ocean is making its presence known. Yet despite the growing intensity outside, there is no panic, only focus, only discipline, only professionalism. That calm confidence is built over years. It comes from experience, it comes from trust, it comes from knowing that every person on board understands their responsibilities. Hours may pass as the weather reaches its peak. Towering waves strike the structure. Powerful winds sweep across exposed decks. Rain lashes against steel surfaces. The platform moves with the sea, absorbing forces that would seem unimaginable to anyone watching from land. And still, the operation continues. This is one of the great achievements of offshore engineering. These structures are designed not only to function during ideal conditions, they are designed to endure some of the harshest environments on Earth. Every beam, every support column, every anchoring system, every safety mechanism, all of it exists for moments like these. Eventually, the storm begins to weaken. The winds gradually lose strength. The waves become smaller. The clouds begin to break apart. For the crews on board, relief is often accompanied by something else: work. Because once the weather passes, inspections begin immediately. Teams move throughout the installation, examining critical systems. Equipment is checked, structures are inspected, operational performance is reviewed, every detail is evaluated, nothing is assumed, everything is verified. This process reflects a deeper principle within the offshore industry. Success is never measured by avoiding challenges. Success is measured by how effectively challenges are managed, and the challenges do not end with weather. In many ways, nature is only one part of the equation. Some of the most complex obstacles exist within the operation itself. A modern offshore platform is an astonishingly sophisticated machine. Thousands of systems work together simultaneously. Mechanical systems, electrical systems, hydraulic systems, digital monitoring networks, safety systems, production equipment, communication infrastructure, all operating continuously, all interconnected. The complexity is staggering. A single platform can generate enormous volumes of operational data every day. Sensors monitor pressure, temperature, flow rates, structural performance, equipment health, environmental conditions. Every second, information flows through networks of computers and monitoring systems. Operators analyze this information continuously. Their role is not simply to react to problems. Their role is to identify potential issues before they become problems. This proactive approach has transformed offshore operations. Today, advanced monitoring technologies allow teams to predict maintenance needs, optimize performance, and improve reliability in ways that were impossible just a few decades ago. Technology has become an essential partner, but technology alone is never enough. Behind every sophisticated system stands a human being making decisions. Experienced professionals interpret data, evaluate risks, assess priorities, and determine the best course of action. Knowledge remains one of the industry's most valuable resources. In fact, some of the greatest innovations offshore were not created in laboratories. They were developed by people working directly in the field, people who observed small details, people who solved practical problems, people who found better ways to perform difficult tasks. Over time, these improvements accumulated. What once seemed impossible gradually became routine. Operations moved into deeper waters. Equipment became more capable. Production systems became more efficient. Entire new regions of the world became accessible. The boundaries of offshore development continued expanding, and with every new frontier came new opportunities, but also new risks. Because the deeper humanity pushes into the ocean, the greater the challenges become. The next chapter of the offshore story would demand even more innovation, even more precision, and even more courage. Because some of the most remarkable achievements in offshore history were still waiting beneath the waves. As offshore exploration expanded across the world, one reality became increasingly clear. The easiest resources had already been found, the reservoirs closest to shore, the fields located in relatively shallow waters, the projects that could be developed using existing technology. Those opportunities had helped shape the early decades of the industry, but the future was waiting elsewhere, far beyond the horizon, far below the surface, in regions where the ocean itself became one of the greatest engineering challenges ever encountered. For many years, certain areas were considered unreachable, not because scientists doubted the presence of resources, but because nobody knew how to access them safely and economically. The depths were simply too extreme. Thousands of meters of water separated the surface from the seabed. The pressure was immense. The temperatures were unforgiving. Even the most advanced equipment faced limitations. Yet history has shown that industries built on innovation rarely accept limitations for long. Engineers began searching for solutions. Researchers developed new materials. Manufacturers designed stronger systems. Operators gained valuable experience from each project completed. Step by step, the impossible began moving closer to reality. What once existed only as theory gradually became practice. One breakthrough led to another. Improved drilling systems allowed wells to reach greater depths. More sophisticated subsea equipment increased reliability. Advanced dynamic positioning systems enabled vessels to maintain precise locations, even in challenging conditions. Computing power transformed the way operations were monitored and controlled. Every advancement expanded the industry's capabilities, and every advancement opened doors to opportunities that had previously been out of reach. The offshore world was entering a new era, an era defined not by proximity to shore, but by the ability to operate wherever resources could be found. This shift changed everything. Projects became larger, investments became greater, engineering challenges became more complex, but so did the rewards. Some of the world's most important offshore discoveries emerged from these deeper frontiers, fields capable of producing enormous volumes of energy, projects with the potential to influence global supply chains, developments that attracted international attention and reshaped economic forecasts. Yet behind every successful project stood years of effort that rarely appeared in public view. People often see the finished platform, the production figures, the headlines announcing major discoveries. What they rarely see is the journey required to reach that point, the years of research, the countless design revisions, the simulations, the testing, the setbacks, the lessons learned. Innovation rarely follows a straight path. Many solutions emerged only after repeated failures. Equipment had to be redesigned, processes had to be improved, unexpected challenges demanded new approaches. But each obstacle contributed to a growing body of knowledge. Knowledge that became one of the industry's most powerful assets. Over time, entire generations of offshore professionals contributed to this evolution. Veteran engineers shared decades of experience. Young specialists introduced fresh ideas and new technologies. Research institutions collaborated with operators. Manufacturers worked alongside field personnel. The result was a constant cycle of improvement. A cycle that continues today, because offshore development is not a destination, it is an ongoing process of adaptation and learning. Nowhere is that more visible than beneath the surface. Far below the waves, subsea technology has evolved into a world of extraordinary sophistication. Modern seabed installations can operate for years with minimal direct human intervention. Networks of sensors continuously transmit information. Control systems respond instantly to changing conditions. Robotic vehicles perform inspections that once seemed impossible. Entire production systems function in environments where human presence remains extremely limited. To an outside observer, it may seem almost futuristic. Yet these technologies are operating right now in oceans around the world, quietly, reliably, continuously, supporting operations that millions of people depend upon every day. And despite all this technological progress, one factor remains unchanged: the human element. Because no matter how advanced the equipment becomes, people remain at the center of every offshore operation. People make the decisions, people evaluate risks, people develop solutions, people carry responsibility. This responsibility extends far beyond production targets. It includes environmental protection, operational integrity, workforce safety, community relationships, long-term sustainability. The modern offshore industry operates under expectations that continue to grow. Society demands higher standards, regulators require greater accountability, stakeholders expect transparency and performance. Meeting those expectations requires constant effort, and that effort is visible everywhere. From the design of new facilities to the execution of daily operations, from maintenance programs to emergency preparedness, from environmental monitoring to workforce training. Every aspect of the operation reflects a commitment to continuous improvement. This mindset has become essential because offshore projects are measured not in months, but often in decades. A platform installed today may remain operational for 20, 30, or even 40 years. During that time, countless variables will change. Technology will evolve, markets will shift, new regulations will emerge. Environmental conditions will continue to challenge every system. The ability to adapt becomes just as important as the ability to build. And adaptation requires something that every successful offshore operation depends upon: people willing to learn, people willing to improve, people willing to prepare for challenges that have not yet appeared. Because somewhere beyond the next horizon, new opportunities are already waiting, new reservoirs, new technologies, new discoveries. And as the offshore industry continues pushing deeper into the unknown, the next generation of secrets is already beginning to take shape beneath the ocean floor. The question is no longer whether those secrets exist. The question is how far humanity is willing to go to uncover them. Every offshore operation depends on technology, but technology alone cannot keep a platform running. Behind every successful project stands something equally important: people, Thousands of individuals working together across different countries, disciplines, and environments. Some spend their careers at sea. Others work in offices, laboratories, shipyards, manufacturing facilities, or control centers far from the ocean. Many will never meet one another, yet their efforts remain connected through a single objective: keeping one of the world's most complex industries operating safely and efficiently. This human network begins long before a platform is installed. Years before production starts, teams of specialists are already at work. Geologists search for promising formations. Geophysicists analyze seismic data. Reservoir engineers estimate production potential. Environmental experts assess possible impacts. Financial analysts evaluate project feasibility. Legal teams navigate regulatory requirements. Every major offshore development begins with collaboration, and that collaboration continues throughout the entire life of the project. Once development moves forward, another enormous challenge emerges: building the workforce capable of operating it. Modern offshore facilities require a remarkable range of expertise: mechanical technicians, electrical specialists, control room operators, crane operators, marine crews, safety professionals, inspection teams, subsea engineers, logistics coordinators, medical personnel, information technology experts. The list seems endless. Each role carries unique responsibilities. Each role contributes to the larger mission, and each role depends on the others. This interconnected structure creates one of the defining characteristics of offshore work: trust. People trust the quality of equipment designed by teams they may never meet. Operators trust maintenance crews. Maintenance crews trust inspection specialists. Marine teams trust weather analysts. Entire operations depend upon confidence in the work performed by others. That trust is not given automatically. It is earned through consistency, through professionalism, through discipline, and through a shared commitment to doing things correctly. Perhaps nowhere is that commitment more visible than in the culture of safety. In the early years of industrial development, safety standards often looked very different from those we recognize today. Many industries learned difficult lessons through experience. Offshore operations were no exception. Over time, incidents, investigations, and technological advancements led to significant improvements. Procedures evolved, equipment improved, training programs expanded. Safety became deeply integrated into every aspect of offshore work. Today, before many tasks can even begin, teams conduct detailed risk assessments. Potential hazards are identified, control measures are reviewed, roles and responsibilities are confirmed. Emergency procedures are discussed. Every participant understands the plan. Some observers may view these processes as routine, but within the industry they are recognized as essential. Because serious incidents rarely result from a single failure. More often they emerge from a chain of events. Breaking that chain before problems develop is one of the most important objectives in modern offshore operations. This philosophy influences everything, from equipment design to maintenance schedules, from workforce training to operational planning, from daily activities to long-term strategy. The goal is simple: prevent problems before they occur. And while safety remains a central priority, another challenge continues growing in importance: efficiency. Operating offshore is expensive. Every vessel, every helicopter flight, every piece of equipment, every hour of labor, all represent significant investments. For that reason, companies constantly seek ways to improve performance, not by taking shortcuts, but by working smarter. Digital technologies have become increasingly important in this effort. Sensors now collect enormous amounts of information. Advanced software analyzes operational trends. Artificial intelligence assists with predictive maintenance. Digital twins simulate equipment performance. Remote monitoring systems provide real-time visibility into critical operations. What once required physical presence can now often be monitored from hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away. These tools allow teams to identify issues earlier, optimize maintenance schedules, reduce downtime, improve reliability, and make better decisions. The offshore industry has become increasingly data-driven, yet, despite this technological transformation, some things remain unchanged. Experience still matters, judgment still matters, leadership still matters. Technology can provide information, but people provide understanding. And nowhere is that understanding more valuable than during unexpected situations. Every offshore professional eventually encounters moments that cannot be found in manuals, conditions that differ from expectations, equipment behaviors that require interpretation, operational challenges that demand creativity. In those moments, experience becomes invaluable. Veteran workers often recognize subtle warning signs that newer personnel might overlook. They understand patterns. They remember previous situations. They know when to investigate further and when to act quickly. This transfer of knowledge has always been one of the industry's greatest strengths. Generation after generation, project after project, lesson after lesson, the collective knowledge continues growing. In many ways, offshore expertise resembles a living library, a vast collection of practical experience accumulated over decades. Every challenge solved adds another chapter. Every innovation contributes another page. Every successful operation expands what is possible. This constant evolution has enabled remarkable achievements. Fields once considered inaccessible now produce reliably. Operations once viewed as experimental have become standard practice. Technologies once described as futuristic are now part of everyday operations. And still, progress continues, because the offshore industry faces another major transformation, one that extends beyond traditional exploration and production. A transformation driven by changing energy needs, new technologies, and a rapidly evolving world. The oceans that once represented primarily a source of hydrocarbons are beginning to support an even broader range of energy solutions. And that shift is opening a completely new chapter in the story of offshore innovation. A chapter that may become just as significant as everything that came before. For decades, offshore development was primarily associated with oil and natural gas. These resources fueled economic growth, powered industries, and supported modern life across the globe. Entire regions were transformed by discoveries made beneath the ocean floor. Cities expanded, ports grew, new industries emerged, millions of jobs were created. The impact extended far beyond the platforms themselves. Yet the world never stands still. Energy demand continues to evolve. Technology continues to advance. New priorities emerge. And as these changes unfold, the offshore sector is entering another period of transformation. Today, many of the same skills that helped unlock deep-water resources are being applied to entirely new challenges. The ocean remains a frontier of opportunity, but the opportunities are becoming more diverse. Offshore wind farms now rise from coastal waters around the world. Massive turbines convert the power of moving air into electricity. Some stand taller than skyscrapers. Their blades sweep across the sky with remarkable precision. From a distance, they appear almost motionless. Yet together, they generate enormous amounts of energy. Building these installations requires expertise that feels familiar to many offshore professionals. Marine logistics, heavy lifting operations, subsea infrastructure, weather management, remote operations. The knowledge accumulated through decades of offshore development continues to prove valuable in new ways. The same ocean that challenged earlier generations is now supporting entirely different forms of innovation. And offshore wind is only part of the story. Researchers and engineers are exploring additional technologies that could shape the future of marine energy. Floating energy systems, carbon capture infrastructure, hydrogen production facilities, advanced subsea networks. Concepts that once seemed theoretical are gradually becoming reality. Some are still in early stages, others are already moving toward commercial implementation. Together, they reflect an important truth. The offshore industry has always been defined by adaptation. Its history is a history of solving problems. When challenges appear, solutions emerge. When limitations arise, innovation follows. This pattern has repeated itself for generations, and it continues today. The ability to adapt may become even more important in the years ahead, because future projects will face increasingly complex expectations: economic performance, environmental responsibility, technological reliability, workforce development, public trust. All must be balanced simultaneously. Achieving that balance will require more than engineering expertise. It will require collaboration. Governments, researchers, technology companies, operators, and local communities will all play important roles. No single organization can shape the future alone. The scale of the challenge is simply too great. Yet history suggests there is reason for optimism. After all, the offshore industry has repeatedly accomplished objectives that once seemed impossible. At various points in time, deep-water drilling was considered unrealistic. Subsea production systems appeared extraordinarily ambitious. Remote operations seemed unlikely. Many of today's standard practices were once viewed as distant possibilities. Then they became achievable. Then they became routine. The future may follow a similar path. Some of the technologies currently under development may eventually transform the industry in ways that are difficult to imagine today. The next major breakthrough could emerge from a laboratory, a shipyard, a university, a startup company, or from a worker solving a practical problem during an ordinary shift. Innovation often appears where people are willing to look beyond existing limitations. And offshore professionals have spent generations doing exactly that. Still, no discussion of the future would be complete without recognizing a fundamental reality. The ocean itself remains unchanged. Technology evolves, equipment improves, knowledge expands. But the sea continues to demand respect. Storms still form, currents still move, waves still carry immense power, distance still creates challenges. Every new project must account for these realities. Nature remains a constant partner in every offshore endeavor. Perhaps that is one reason the industry continues to inspire fascination. It exists at the intersection of human ambition and natural force, a place where engineering meets uncertainty, where planning meets unpredictability, where determination meets the limits of the physical world. Few environments illustrate this relationship more clearly. Every successful offshore operation represents a negotiation between capability and challenge, a demonstration of what can be achieved when preparation, knowledge, and perseverance come together. And as the industry evolves, those qualities remain as important as ever. Because the next chapter of offshore development is already beginning. New projects are being designed, new technologies are being tested, new discoveries are being evaluated. Some will succeed, others will encounter obstacles. All will contribute to the continuing story. A story that stretches across oceans and generations. A story written by engineers, technicians, scientists, mariners, pilots, operators, and countless others whose work often remains unseen. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of that story is not the machinery, not the platforms, not the vessels, not even the discoveries. It is the persistence, the willingness to continue exploring, to continue learning, to continue advancing into environments that challenge conventional thinking. Because every time humanity pushes beyond a perceived boundary, something extraordinary happens. A new horizon appears, and beyond that horizon, another secret waits to be uncovered. The offshore world has always been full of secrets, some hidden beneath layers of rock, some concealed within the depths of the ocean, and some found within the ingenuity of the people determined to reveal them. Those are the secrets that continue to shape the offshore industry, and they are far from exhausted. In fact, the next great discovery may already be waiting beneath